As you know, my name is Kanchan the Tech Pro, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make a GET request and also a POST request using React. So I've made this step by step right here. So there are 5 steps, and I'm also going to be putting the details as well as the code snippets in my website kanchanthegenius.com. So please subscribe to my channel by hitting on the subscribe button below this video. So I have a page here. I created this component I call post list, and for now I'm only displaying this heading here, list of posts, and I've also added this component to the app component. So for now we just have displaying this heading right here. So the first thing you want to do is to install the Axios package. So if you look at the console, the terminal window here, you can see npm install Axios, and this is something I already did. The next thing you want to do is to import Axios here. So you are going to say import Axios from Axios. So once you install Axios, then you are going to import Axios from Axios. And then let's now write the method to make the GET request. And now this method will display the list of items on this page once this page loads up. So for us to get it load when the page loads, it means we are going to write the function in component did mount. So let me write the function at this point. So you are simply going to say in component did mount, we are going to write a function, simply say axios.get, and you specify the URL endpoint or the URL where you have the list of items. Here I'm going to get some an API endpoint from this JSON placeholder.typicode.com, and I go to /posts, and I'm simply going to copy this list of posts from here, and the URL, and just paste it right here. Okay, now we have axios.get, and we have made this is the request. Now, what do you do with what comes back? The response that comes back from this request, we are going to place it in a state variable. So we need to create a state variable right now. So to do that, I'm going to simply use arrowconst to add a constructor. And here in this state, I'm going to simply say posts. And for now, I'm going to put it as an empty array of items. Alright, so in component did mount here, so once the items comes back, it's going to come back. We are going to the request is made as a promise. So when the item comes back, we are going to say .then, and then we are going to specify a function that is going to assign the return values to the post variable. So I'm going to put an arrow function that takes a response as a parameter, and all right. So at this point, I'm simply going to say posts. Sorry, I'm going to use set state. This .set state, and I'm going to set the state right here by saying posts. Posts is going to be response dot data. So once you have it this way, then we have the response will come back here. Again, I would like to display this response in the console. So I'm going to say console.log. Let's just make sure that we have a response, and I'm going to say a response.data. Okay, so I'm going to run this. I'm going to save everything, and I'm going to go back to the web page and look at my console. So I'm saving everything, and I'm going back to my web page, which is right here, and it says console is not a function. So actually it's going to be console.log, and save everything. And going back here, I'm going to open my console, and I hope to see a list of items here. I'm going to clear this and refresh the page. Alright, so you can see a list of items, and this is a list of posts that have been returned. So fine. everything is working perfectly well. So what we now want to do is to display this list of posts on the web page. So what I'm going to do now is to come to this render, the render of methods, and I'm going to destructure the post state. So I'm going to say posts const posts is equal to this.state. So at this point, I'm getting the posts into the post variable here from the state. Now what we want to do now is under this heading tag, I'm going to say posts.map. So I'm going to map through, map over all the list of posts and get individual posts and then display it in a different div tag. So map is going to take an arrow function that's going to take a parameter and is going to return a div tag. So for each of the posts, return one post and display it in this div tag. So in this post, I'm going to say, in between the div tag, I'm going to say posts.title. And because if you look at the post, it has a title and it also has an ID and also post title and post ID. All right, so I'm going to also set the key to be post.id. Okay, and this is going to be post.title. So I'm going to save everything and I'm going to check if it works. Hopefully it's going to work. So let me just make some room here. I think I need to enclose this. Yeah, so I think I need to put this in between a curly, in between curly braces. So sometimes this one. So just take out this. Okay, so you can see what I just did now. All right, so it looks a bit better right now. So we have this list of this heading tag, and also we have a list of items. So I'm going to save everything and I'm going back to my web page, and you can see it displays the list of posts right here. You can also use body here, or I think there is title, there is also body. Now you can use maybe some format to format the display the way you want. For now, this is not a CSS tutorial, but this is a REST API tutorial, making get and post requests in React. Okay, now we have made a get request. Now I want us to make a post request to post an item to the endpoint. So I'm going to, in the API folder, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it post form. I'm going to call it post form. So there is a component that is going to display the form for the user to fill and then send. So I'm going to use RCE to create a class component, and I'm going to remove this export from here. Okay, so this is fine. And yeah, so the next thing I would like to do now is to display a form. So I'm going to actually create a form that displays input for user to enter. So if I come back here, you can see that we have user ID, we have title, we have body. So that's a form. We have three different fields. So let's start with the first one. So we have a form tag, form. Normally I like to write on submit. On submit is equal to handle submit. We are going to write this a little later. Handle submit, and that is fine. And within the form tag, I need a div tag to hold other items. Actually, I would have copied this from maybe Bootstrap, templates, but let me just type it out so you can see everything. Okay, so we need input. So the input, the type is going to be text. The type is going to be text, and permit me to just shift this one right down. The type is going to be text, and the name is going to be a user ID, and the name is going to be user ID, and the body is going to be body. All right. So no, this is not the name, and we need the value. The value is going to be, now the value will be what the user entered, and what the user entered into this form is going to be captured in the state variable. So for now, let's leave the value. I'm going to come back to it, and let's create the states that will hold the items or the inputs of this form. So I'm going to come here and then create the constructor rconst, and now I can add 3 states. It's going to be user ID. For now, it's an empty string, and I also need title is also an empty string, and finally I need the body, also set to an empty string. So at this point, I can now set the values to be these states here. So I can actually say value is equal to this dot state dot user ID, as you can see here, but I don't want to be using this dot state, so I'm going to destructure the states right here. So I'm going to say const user ID, title, and body is equal to this dot state. So I'm going to destructure the state here, so I can now use the user ID right like this. Another thing I would like to add is the onChange. So onChange is equal to, we need a function that is going to handle the change event. So I've not written this function, but I'm going to write it. So have onChange is equal to this dot handle change. All right, so this is what we have. So what we have now is for a single input. So permit me to also add some labels here. So let me just add label, and it's going to be user ID. All right, perfect. So I can now copy this across into 3 places. I can now copy this into 3 places for the title and also the body. So I'm going to copy it and then paste it one more time, and let's change the second one. The second one is going to be the title, and the name is going to be title, and the value is going to be title. For now, let's leave the handle change to be the same, and we are going to vary the content of this function based on what actually is changing. So for the last one is going to be body, and the value is going to be body, and the label is also going to be body. Okay, and finally, I'm going to add a button below. So this button is going to be this submit button. So I'm going to add it right here as well. So I'm going to say button submit, and yeah, so simply say type is equal to submit right here. Okay, now we've not written any function for now, but for now we are almost set, but we now need to write the function to handle change and also the function to submit. Now the function to submit will actually make the request. For now, let's do the handle change. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to write an arrow function. So the function that handles the change is going to take an event which represents the button, the the input item that was clicked. So I'm going to say handle change equals an arrow function. All right. So this handle change is going to take an event that represents what was clicked, and we are now going to use what was clicked, what changed, and use it to set the state. So I'm going to say this dot set state, and I'm going to say oh yeah, so this is fine. So I'm going to say now we're having only one handle change function, but we want to set the state based on what was clicked. So the name represents the state, because you can see the name is the state right here. So normally we are going to say name and then value, remember. So in this case, the name is going to be coming from this E. So I'm going to say E dot target, E dot target dot name, and it's going to get a value, E dot target dot value. Okay, so this represents what, hopefully I'm not making any mistake. Okay, this represents when the text box changes, you get what was changed, what changed. Okay, now I'm going to write another function that says handle submit, and now I want to display on the console the content of all the items. I mean the content of all the input fields. That's what I want to display right now when the submit button is clicked. For now, let me not submit. Let me just display to the console. Let me just say E dot target All right, so I'm displaying either target. So I'm going to save everything. And if I go back to the page right now, okay, I need to first add this post form to the app component. So I'm going to go to the app component and I'm going to add post form. Okay, so I'm going to save everything, save, and go back to the page. And it says handle submit is not defined. Okay, so we have this handle submit is going to be this dot handle submit, and the same also we have this dot handle change. I'm going to save everything and go back here. So you can see we have our form here displayed, and I would like to open my console, console here. Okay, so I'm going to go to console and I'm going to say user ID 75, title my joke, and the body is the mouse jumped over the moon, and I'm going to submit. Okay, so we have an error. So we're gonna just, we have on submit, we have okay, we have console is actually console.log. They remember when we enter some items, when we enter some items in the text box, it changes and set the state. So what we can do is just to check what the state is containing right here. So I'm going to say this dot state. Let me just check what is in there in the state. So I'm going to save everything and I'm going back to this place, and let's say we come back to this place and the same thing, I'm going to submit. Okay, so you can see that when you submit, it refreshes the page, and this is what we want to avoid. So I'm going to come to submit handler and simply say e.prevent default. All right, so I'm going to save everything, and I'm going to come back here and enter the same thing, my joke, and this, and then submit. So you can see that the items we entered is available as the state in the state of the component. That is fine. So what we now want to do is to submit these items to the API endpoint. And again, we are going to use something similar to what we use here. So I'm going to simply come here. This time, we are going to execute. Actually, I'm going to just copy everything from here. I'm going to copy everything and use it in the post form. And this time, I'm going to simply paste it right here when you click on the submit button. But in this case, we are going to change it to post. And the URL where you are sending the items remains the same, but now we need to include what we are trying to send is going to be this .state, because now the state contains everything. And now when we get a response back, that response will now contain the item that was created, the new item that was created, and it will contain a unique ID that was also generated. So then response, and I'm going to simply, in the response, instead of, I'm not going to set the state at this point, so I'm going to simply take out, let me just make sure I'm not making a mistake. Okay, so when the response comes, I'm going to simply display the response to the console. So I'm going to say console.log. I'm going to simply say response. I think I can say response.data. Okay, so response, that is fine. So once it submits successfully, it's going to display a response that contains the submitted item as well as a unique ID to the console. So I'm going to say to save everything now. And coming back here, I'm going to just refresh. Okay, so we have Axios not defined. So I think I need to also import Axios in the post form. I need to import Axios. So I'm going to copy import Axios statement and paste it right here in the post form. And I'm going to save everything and go back to the page. Okay. So I'm going to just shift this to make some room. So let's say we use the same ID, my joke, and everything is the same, and submit. And now you can see that 201 created state use code. And if I check at this point, you can see the data. And now you can see the ID of 101 is being assigned, meaning that the submission worked and the item was created, and you have a status code of 201, which is, I think 201 means created. So this is basically how to make a get and a post request in React using Axios. To make a put and delete request follows the same way. You simply make the request to the endpoint exactly the same way we did, and it's going to work. So I'm going to stop here. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be updating everything I said, including the codes I've written on my website, kindsonthegenius.com. So please visit my website, and if you have any question whatsoever, please leave me a comment below. I remain Kindson the Tech Pro, and I'm always there for you.